If you're interested in your community's news, don't you dare turn the channel. Stay tuned to the editor of the Myrtle Beach Herald. Coming up next on Carolina People. Visiting with the editor of the Myrtle Beach Herald, Tom O'Dare. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming in. What's it like here? This Johnny Rockets is amazing.
I love this place. You ever come in here when they're dancing and singing? They have a great time here.
They're not doing it early in the morning.
Not early in the morning, but
yeah. You're exactly right. They are slamming all the time. That's
exactly
right. They've got big business for lunch, and I guess their dinner crowd must be tremendous.
Yeah. It's always a fun atmosphere, too.
Must be tremendous, yeah. And of course, we talk about singing and dancing, Tom. You're a performer yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, I play drums on weekends. I play in a classic country band. We play on Friday nights at the VFW in Little River, and Saturday nights at the Billy the Kids in Little River.
Both in Little River?
Yeah.
Now, do you live in Little River?
Well, actually, I live in Garden City.
That's a little bit of a trip.
So I'm going to say, thank God for the Carolina Bays Parkway. So I can make it in about 25 minutes if the cops aren't out.
Can you really? From Garden City to Little River?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. It's one of those roads the tourists haven't found yet. So we
yeah, that's tremendous. That's tremendous. And of course, being up in the Little River and playing now, that's every Friday and Saturday.
Every Friday night and 3 Saturdays of the month.
Okay. And you said classic country. What is classic country?
We play the old country stuff. We play like old country, like George Jones, Merle Haggard, Ray Price. A lot of stuff I've never heard of. We play it anyway. I'm the baby of the band. I'm the youngest guy in the band. So.
Oh yeah. And you're the drummer for
the
band.
Drums, yeah.
Have you been drumming for a long time?
Since I was 15.
Is that right?
Which is a few years ago.
Yeah, just 6 or 8.
6 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. You dye your hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Distinguished.
Yeah, the distinguished. What was that? Well, I can't remember that funny. That's right. This is very exciting time to get you in. And of course, when you think about community newspapers, I think one thing a lot of people think about. We've got Dan Gray coming in with us tomorrow, and I think he'll share with us. I remember when he talked about it another time that he used to sell the Charlotte Observer when it was a daily down in the Myrtle Beach area, and I'm going to talk to him about that tomorrow. But of course, when you think about weeklies, are weeklies really that important?
Weeklies are very important. I mean, we focus strictly on what's happening locally. We don't cover the international, the national. This is the kind of stuff that people, the local residents, need to know about. Mm-hmm. From news to church happenings to club happenings to social events to local sports where their kids play, not the pro athletes. This is where the junior high and high school kids get their name in the paper and their pictures in the paper. So it's very important.
Now, there's a daily newspaper that covers Horry County and I guess Georgetown and Brunswick County. Do they not do all that?
Not as focused as the weekly papers do.
Right.
Our focus is strictly that area.
Sure. Well, I guess in this area and in Georgetown County, you've got Coastal Observer's a weekly, the Ainer Journal,
Northmore Beach
Times, Loris Scene and Loris Times, Horry Independent.
There's a few around.
So they really target their area.
Weekly papers are very vital to what people in local communities need. And they look to us a lot now to find out what's really going on in their communities.
There are many people who just subscribe to a weekly and don't worry about other papers.
Actually, there are a lot I come across.
Really?
That's all they said they get their national and international news when they watch CNN or the news.
Sure.
They pick up the weekly paper to find out what's going on. So,
that's fascinating.
Which is always nice to hear.
Oh, absolutely.
They're their source.
And of course, for you, now you both report as well as edit. I mean, you serve as both your editor and
reporter, and write a column and take pictures.
That's right.
A little bit of everything.
You actually cover the entire spectrum there.
Which is what I love about a weekly paper. You get to do a little bit of everything. You're not bogged down in one little niche there.
Of course, Surfside Beach is a very important part of the Myrtle Beach Herald in that area. Garden City, Merle's Inlet. It's been growing quite a bit.
Surfside Beach is really taking us on as their newspaper. The people down there love the Myrtle Beach Herald now. We make sure we cover what's going on. Lately, there's been a lot going on down there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For a small town, there's a lot going on in that little town. So.
I tried to pull up your name, Tom, and Googled early this morning, and of course I saw a lot of stuff that was you or trying to get your word in there in Surfside Beach, and you popped up in a lot of Surfside Beach town minutes there.
Yeah, actually.
Your name popped up in a lot of places.
Yeah, because newspapers newspaper person has to make sure that everything's going on the way it's supposed to, and sometimes we'll discuss their issues about executive sessions and private meetings. So
Private meeting. What do you call secret meeting?
we call them secret meetings.
Yeah.
They don't like that, but we call it that. I say, well, if it's not secret, let me go in there. And they go, no, then it's secret. So.
Then that sounds like a secret meeting.
And it's pretty much a running joke down at Surfside now. They'll say, can I get a vote to go in Tom's secret meeting?
So you built a good rapport. I mean, you obviously have to remain objective on everything, but there's some give and
Which is what we strive for at the Herald. We try to stay as objective without any agendas and not one side. And that's what the people, especially the Surfside, have picked up on. And we cover them, and sometimes they like what we write, sometimes they don't, but we write what happens. So that's what...
So the Myrtle Beach Herald is not just about Myrtle Beach.
No, we cover Myrtle Beach, Surfside, Garden City, Horry County in general.
Sure, absolutely. And of course, Paul Gable, who's been with the Herald a few years now, does a great job covering the county. I think you principally focus Steve and his turf.
Pretty much on the city now.
The Myrtle Beach, the city of Myrtle Beach, and you really cover the South End and everything.
And when you do that, you start picking up contacts of people who trust you and know their area, so they rely on you for that stuff.
So each of y'all have kind of, I guess, sources or folks that y'all turn to get the scoop. Yeah.
Right.
And that really has to remain confidential to a great degree. Yeah. We will not. I will not ask you on camera. Who are the sources? That's right.
Sources,
Last Friday, big day for the Herald. You guys were in Columbia. Share with the viewers.
We had a great time in Columbia. We have a very hardworking staff at the Herald. They came through last Friday at the Press Awards. For the second time in the last 3 years, we've been named the #1 weekly paper in the state.
Is that right? #1 paper in the state.
#1 General Excellence.
The General Excellence Award. Wow.
The overall #1 ranking. So
that is true.
Very proud of the people at the Herald there.
3 years ago, it was #1.
Last year was #3.
That's right. 2 years ago, it was #1. Last year, #3, and then this year, #1. Wow.
Out of about 50, 60, 70-something papers. So
that is tremendous.
Yeah, we're very proud of that.
When you think about what all goes into that, did they share with it? I'm sure as they were giving you the award, talked about it. It's really it's pretty broad.
Well, they look at the overall appearance, the type of news you have, the way it's laid out, what's in it, your content. Just every kind of little detail. That's what they pick out on.
I would ask you to name all the columnists and all the people involved, Tom, but I think it's almost impossible when you think about all the different things each week that you're having to make sure comes in properly. You and the copy editor, Betty Moses.
Yeah, we get it from all angles coming in. We cover news, we cover profiles of different people. We make sure we got sports, we have social columns, we make sure we have plenty of pictures.
Sure.
That's in addition to the ads. That's a whole different section. I don't deal with those.
That's right. We stay out of that. Yeah.
Just the news part.
Of course, that aspect about profiles, and that's been an interesting thing. I think you all even do a profile on Herald subscribers.
We do a Herald subscriber. We do a Public Safety of the Week, Public Servant of the Week.
Veteran of the Week, over near your.
And that's really been a real rewarding one.
Oh yeah.
We've had people call and thank us over and over for talking about their granddad or their dad or their husband, and
Really?
Yeah, that's really rewarding.
The Herald has a website as well.
Right, you can read online.
I think you were sharing with us earlier this morning that you've got a family member.
I've got my family lives in North Carolina, and my sister will read the paper online and critique it every Thursday. And
is that right?
So if there's something I write about, she wants to comment. I'll get a call Thursday night. She read my column. Sometimes she agrees, sometimes she disagrees, sometimes she says you better watch out.
You'll get it back.
You'll get it.
Yeah. That's hilarious. And you've got how many brothers and sisters?
I have 2 older sisters.
2 older sisters. Right. Are your folks still living there?
Yeah, they live up in Belmont, North Carolina.
Is that right?
My dad's 83 and my mom's 81.
Son of a gun. Yeah. I understand they've had a long marriage.
They've been married 64 years now.
Come on now. Yeah. From their late teens.
Yeah, from World War II.
Yeah.
They got married in World War II and they've been married,
Son of a gun. 64 years?
64 years.
That's incredible.
My mother says it's a long 64 years, but she just, but I'm very lucky to still have them around. And it's a couple that, if you want to see how to really make a marriage work, you watch those 2 people.
Yeah.
Very lucky to see.
That's fantastic. Now, did y'all principally grow up in North or South Carolina?
Both. My dad was with Duke Power, so I grew up in North Carolina until I was 13, and then we moved to Pickens, which is in upstate South Carolina, up near Clemson.
Your folks lived down in this area until recently.
They lived here until July, and then they moved back up to North Carolina, being my sister. So
To the Belmont
health has
area.
declined a little bit, so they have a lot of people to look at.
Did they read the Herald as well?
Yeah, they get it every week. They get it in the mail. Yeah, sometimes I'll get comments about it from my
Yeah, I
dad.
was
He'll
wondering
call
if
me.
you get as many calls.
My dad will call every now and then. Yeah, but they look for it he checks the mailbox every Friday when it gets up there.
That's
so.
great. That is tremendous. And that's the great thing oftentimes about a weekly is you're able to get it out in the mail. The U.S. Postal Service is such a critical role
Yeah.
for community and weekly
And
newspapers.
we have people from all over the country who
Oh, yeah.
subscribe to that. And now with the website online, we get, worldwide.
And read it from everywhere.
Yeah.
Very definitely. And a big kudos to all the community newspapers. In North Myrtle Beach, Polly Loman, a former president of the South Carolina Press Association, had her paper, I think, since 71.
Yeah.
Steve Robertson and he and his wife Cheryl and their children since the mid-'80s. And obviously the Coastal Observer and the Herald's come on strong. Debbie Harwell, or Boggs Johnson formerly, now Harwell, kicked off the Herald in the mid-'90s. So,
Which goes back to the first thing about how important they are. A lot of these large daily papers are declining. They're losing subscribers. They're losing money. But the weeklies stay strong. People want to know what's going on in their town, and weeklies pretty much stay strong if they do a good job.
you don't hear about many weeklies that have declining circulation. You hear about increasing
going up,
circulation,
Yeah.
but not about declining. That's the commitment of localism in the community.
Yeah, and we stress that. Local, everything is local.
When you think about for yourself, Tom, what first prompted you to get into journalism as a career?
I needed a job.
Oh yeah, very simple.
I taught school for years. I was teaching in a private school in Charleston County, and a lot of the families in that area, a couple plants shut down, so they moved out. So when the enrollment dropped, the four of us at the school had master's degrees who they were paying us more.
Wow.
They said, see ya.
Oh God.
So I saw an ad in the paper for the Goose Creek Gazette. And so they wanted somebody to cover politics and city councils and county councils. And I majored in political science.
Right.
So I called the lady up. She goes, do you have any experience? I went, not a bit. She says, did you major in journalism? I went, not a bit. She goes, good, I'll talk to you.
Oh wow.
She wanted somebody to train from the beginning. And so
Yeah.
I got in there and didn't know what I was doing. But she taught me real quickly. I had to learn real quick. And
Yeah.
found out it was something I really loved. I've been in ever since. So
And you were a quick learner.
yeah.
Yeah. What paper was that? The Pickens
The Goose Creek Gazette
Goose Creek Gazette.
down north of Charleston.
And was that was the first newspaper? Have you worked at other?
I went from there to moved from there to enter to the Berkeley Democrat, and then it sold out to another company.
Right.
And then I worked down at the Mount Pleasant and James Island papers together. We put out 2 papers in 1 week, and that was a task.
Wow, 2 in a week.
I was the editor of 2 papers, one on one side of Charleston, one on the other, and we put them both together on Wednesday mornings, and
Boy,
that was a lot of hours. That was a lot of work
Golly, Tom.
with one reporter and one photographer. That was it.
On either side of Charleston.
Yeah, I crossed those bridges many times.
How did y'all do that? Like your Friday and Saturday trips to Little River, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you just do it. You can go back across those old bridges back then. So,
That's incredible.
but yeah, it's a business I love. I love being in the business.
Yeah. What is it that really tickles keeps you excited?
I get to meet people from every walk of life. You name it, all kinds of people. And that's what I really like. And you find the stories, the personal stories, you find the big stories, the government stories, the features, and but the weekly paper is never the same thing 2 days in a row. Which is what I really like.
Every week, I remember Debbie saying, every week comes very fast.
Real fast.
I guess in the same way, every week changes.
It's like putting a magazine together, once a week to make sure everything's in there.
Right. It's incredible when you think about all the different columns and, as you say, profiles and the tremendous amount of news stories, both sports as well as entertainment, as well as obviously just critical news that has to get out.
And some weeks we're loaded, and some weeks we're not. It just depends.
There are parts of the year that less news is going on.
And there used to be more distinct now, but now with Myrtle Beach area becoming year-round, it doesn't slack up as much as it used to.
Of course, Tom, you write news stories and columns. When you think about, I want to talk about some of your favorite columns in the past, but can you think of any stories in particular that really stand out in your mind?
I think probably the most rewarding story, a couple years ago, there's a community called the Cedar Street community. in a more of a rundown area of Myrtle Beach.
Right.
And we got some calls from some folks living there that saying, we've got drug dealers in our neighborhood. We got prostitution going in front of our houses. Our kids aren't safe. The landlords in the areas are not keeping the place up. And I went down there and talked to people, and it was really a rundown place. I sit there and watched the drug deal go down right beside my car.
No way.
So we wrote a story called "The Myrtle Beach Tourists Don't See," and pointed out that this is really going on 2 blocks. I mean, maybe a mile and a half from the ocean. We've got this kind of war going on.
Right.
And a week after that story came out, the city came in, cleaned up the gullies, cleaned up the parking lots, increased the police patrol, got 2 major drug dealers out there, all because of that story.
Wow.
And it really affected those folks' lives, and they've thanked us over and over. And those are the kind of stories that weekly papers can do.
Oh yeah.
And that's probably the most rewarding story.
I remember some of those pictures in those weeks afterwards. Shots of Tom Leaf and
we had
Mark
city
Pruitt
manager
down
actually
there.
out there in a ditch.
Yeah. And you think about the impact that a story, as you say, can
one
have.
story,
And of course, you were instrumental in breaking that piece on the pavilion,
about Barry Landreth.
Barry Landreth.
Debacle.
Yeah, didn't you break that big?
Yeah, this guy was coming in to develop the pavilion area, and something just didn't seem right about him. So I did a little research, and did a little more research, and found out the guy was a phony. And then we got criticized a lot for writing that. Some of the people didn't want to hear that this guy was a phony.
Right.
But eventually, after 2 or 3 more follow-up stories, they realized that they ran him out on the rail. And last I heard, the FBI had him in prison in California.
Is that right, Tom? Wow.
So those are the kind of stories that you're glad you're able to break that kind of stuff.
That would be an interesting retrospective to look back and to let folks know what's up with Barry now.
Yeah. He's got a captive audience now.
Yeah, a captive audience.
But those kind of stories. When you can do a story that makes a difference. And this guy was going to come in and he was trying to buy up land on the slide and didn't have the money to do it, but told people he did. And we kept after it a little bit and got criticized a little bit, but finally people realized that we were right. So.
How about columns that really stick out in your mind, Tom? And again, I know our focus on community newspapers, but of course you were so much part and parcel of this community newspaper, having worked in other community newspapers. Columns can really be a vehicle. I know Betty last Friday won a big award.
Yeah, she did. If I can talk about Betty Moses, has been the copy editor of the paper since its inception.
Yeah.
We had no idea she was such an incredible writer.
Right.
A few months back, last year, she wanted to write a column. Something she was really deep in her heart. She wanted to write a column about it.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And since then, we said, no, you've got a new job in this to be copy editor. You now are a columnist.
Right.
And sure enough, she won a state award last Friday. So.
She sure did. That's exactly right, which is a tremendous thing. And you think about right out of the gate, kicking off a column.
And won it the first year.
And second in the state.
She was a nice find to have there.
Absolutely.
She's a sweet lady, and to find out that she was that talented was incredible.
I know. Well, Betty's also been writing and now doing 2 profiles in the monthly Myrtle Beach Area Business Journal.
Right.
Just tremendous. Was doing some local book reviews tomorrow. On Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to be with Candace McKenzie here, talking about Be a Dating Darling, which is a book review Betty had done back in September. So it's fascinating when you think, and she did one on Ann Ipoc and some other great.
It turns out it was a dream she'd had all her life to be able to do that.
Right.
So now she's living that dream and doing real well at it.
I know. She is killing it.
Yeah.
Her column this past week was a wonderful one. Folks can go online and read that, or we hope, obviously, they'll pick up a copy of the Herald, since the Herald sponsored Carolina People. But think about your own columns, Tom.
One thing about a column, I have to write the news stories, which are just facts. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. But a column, I get to write opinions. I get the soapbox up a little bit sometimes. As far as favorites, I don't know there's a favorite. But when I get somebody to call me up, I'll run into them in a meeting or run into them at a gathering and say, I agree with everything you wrote last week, or I couldn't quit laughing after reading your column, or your column made me cry. I can relate to what you were writing about.
Right.
Those are the kinds of things that make it worthwhile.
Yeah. Probably get some grueling comments at times as well from people who didn't like your opinions. And,
some,
Right.
sometimes. That just goes with the territory.
Yeah. None of those really stick out in
It's
your
all,
mind.
it's like shooting the messenger. Sometimes people don't like you to write what actually happened.
Sure, that's exactly right. And a column's a difficult thing. When folks think about a news story in a column, the biggest difference, or one is rife with opinion, I guess, and the other really needs to be as objective as possible.
And you have to make sure, and I think we do a decent job at the Herald of making sure we try to keep opinions out of the news stories.
Right.
That's, people won't kind of what happened, facts for facts.
Oh, yeah, that can be a difficult thing.
Sometimes it's hard.
Particularly when you're managing a lot of different folks churning in news stories, even your own. When you think about it, you've got to make a real effort to make sure and try to keep it.
It's not an easy job sometimes.
Right. That can be. And, of course, weekly editorials can be very difficult. When you think about difficult aspects of the job, Tom, what are some of the most difficult? I know you really love it and have a passion for it. What are some of the difficult aspects?
It's not a 9-to-5 job. I mean, sometimes it's 40 hours a week, sometimes it's 60, 70 hours a week. News doesn't always happen before 5. Sometimes it can be grueling like that, the hours can be grueling, but sometimes you find people who don't want to be interviewed, and stories that don't want to be done, but,
like the old Barry Lambert piece, and probably others that stick out in your mind.
There have been some others. That's probably maybe one of the last 5 years, but
and that can be a real issue. And of course, you've got a column that has been named a different drum for a long time. What prompted that?
That's a play on two things. One, if they know me, they know I play drums.
Right, yeah.
Plus, my favorite writer is Henry David Thoreau.
Really?
And one of his favorite columns is, about marching to a different drummer.
I didn't know that.
So that's sort of a play on those two words together.
I did not know that,
That's where it came from,
And of course, when we think about other columns, Steve Porter's Point, pretty easy to figure that out. Betty Moses, My Senior Moment. You think about that, and of course, her thing has gone even beyond just the senior aspect, right?
Very day-to-day stuff. Everybody can relate to, not just the seniors. But.
Right. When you think about those difficult aspects of the job, you of course think about the most fun. I know you've highlighted many of those aspects, and of course on a daily basis really making a difference in people's lives by providing local news.
I think that's probably the main highlight is. And you have to, sometimes you got to step back and realize that, it's a business and, the papers want to make money, but you're also providing a service to people. And it's a big responsibility to provide that service.
When you growing up, Tom, I know this was a total accident, having ended up having to find a job after teaching. Do you miss teaching at all?
Sometimes, I used to like the interaction with the kids. I miss that. But when I look at it, now with the paper, I get to go here, I get to do this, I get to do that. I'm not going to find one spot. So
it gives you a real opportunity to highlight some of the great educators in this area as well.
And I like covering school stuff.
Sure.
Last week I spent the whole morning in Forestburg Middle School.
Really?
In a career day talking about editors and reporters and news and so forth. So I actually got to teach last week.
You went in there for career day.
Yeah, I actually got to teach again. So that was fun.
I did not know that over at Forestburg. That's a great idea. And of course, being able to highlight some of the schools and the great things they're doing. I know you've put a lot of focus on the Horry County March of Dimes.
Right.
And those schools that have been so active, I think you went up to the state meeting even in Columbia.
Oh, yeah. Horry County schools were number 5 in the whole country.
Right.
Incredible.
Did a tremendous job.
A lot of times schools get the bad rap, but I guess coming from a teacher, coming from school, I always try to bring out the positive stuff about the schools too.
Oh yeah, and you still see some of your former students, or I know last week when I was at J. Edwards, I saw a woman who's a daughter.
Yeah, I really
Lulu,
a lot of my students now are have kids or
yeah.
That makes you feel a little old.
Again, you've been out of school for a couple of years.
A few years,
And aspects, of course, when you think about. As we go through each week, Tom, and we talk about that idea of every week comes really fast, what's the part that comes the fastest for you? Is there something that really comes fast, or is it just the editing on Wednesdays, getting ready to make sure the paper gets out?
Well, it comes down to Monday and Tuesday. After we put the paper together on Tuesday night, so it's crunch time on Monday and Tuesday to make sure we try to plan ahead what story. A lot of things happen over the weekend. Some things happen on Monday. Some things happen on Tuesday. So the crunch time of making sure that we've got everything covered that we can possibly cover before Tuesday night.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes it gets done early. Sometimes 1 or 2 o'clock on Wednesday morning, we're still trying to decide what goes on the front page, what goes here, this kind of stuff.
It can be very harrowing. Thanks for everything you do,
Yeah,
Tom.
my
Thanks
pleasure.
for coming in.
My pleasure.
Stay tuned to more Carolina People with the Myrtle Beach Herald's editor, Tom O'Dare, coming up next. If you were at the annual banquet this past Friday in Columbia for the South Carolina Press Association, you would have seen him walking up to the front to pick up his award as having the #1 photo shoot in the state in a special photo category. You would have seen him walking back up again a second time, picking up the #1 award in the state for the entire newspaper for general excellence. 2 years ago, #1. Last year, #3. This year, #1 again in the state of South Carolina, the Myrtle Beach Herald. It's a tremendous thing. You can see Tom on Friday nights at the VFW in Little River. On Saturdays, 3 nights a month at Billy the Kids up there in Little River. Like his parents, 64 years of marriage, they're still doing the same thing, following their son wherever he goes. They're picking up their mail up there in Belmont, North Carolina on Fridays and reading Tom's great column, obviously seeing his work, overview, his pictures throughout the paper. Like his sister on Thursdays. She's going online to myrtlebeachherald.com to check Tom out. And like all the folks out here at Broadway at the beach are going out to the boxes and putting 50 cents in and pulling out their paper on Thursdays. Take the time to check out the community newspaper in your area, whether it's the Dillon Herald, the Orient Independent, the Coastal Observer, or right here, the Myrtle Beach Herald. Check them out.